Let's just get right into it. When we picture epic ancient battles, our minds usually go straight to swords, shields, massive armies clashing, the whole shebang. But today, we're looking at a masterclass in conflict where the deadliest weapons are actually just words. Welcome to The Explainer. We're breaking down this fascinating blueprint of how a minor disagreement can spiral completely out of control step by calculated step. Honestly, it's kind of wild how the psychological warfare in this ancient standoff maps so perfectly onto the most toxic modern debates you see online today.
Which leads us to a pretty incredible question. How exactly does a simple disagreement over who gets praised turn into a literal threat of being burned alive? I mean, really think about that jump. Today we're unpacking a legendary, incredibly tense exchange between the elder statesman Bhishma and the defiant king of Chedi. And look, this isn't just mindless bickering. They are wielding their words as highly calculated precision weapons. Every insult is tailored. Every retort is designed to hit a nerve. The psychological warfare here is absolutely brilliant. So let's break down exactly how this powder keg explodes.
All right, kicking things off with Phase 1, the inciting incident.
So the scene opens with Bhishma completely dismissing the defiance of the king of Chedi. He essentially tells him, hey, your anger isn't even your own. He claims it's actually the will of Hari, or Krishna, seeking to absorb the king's energy because in Bhishma's words, the king is already possessed by death. Wow, right? This perfectly highlights the core ideological split setting off this whole confrontation. You've got Bhishma on one side, who totally reveres Krishna as Hari, the lord of the universe, possessing this endless, undeteriorating energy. And on the flip side, the king of Chedi looks at Krishna and sees just Kesaba, a servitor, a cowherd, someone he thinks is completely unworthy of praise. It's this massive clash of absolute reverence against absolute disdain. And you know, when two foundational worldviews collide like this in public, yeah, a peaceful resolution is pretty much off the table immediately.
And that drives us right into Phase 2, the roster of rivals. Hearing Bhishma's glowing praise for Krishna, the king of Chedi just erupts. He goes on the offensive, demanding to know why other truly mighty warriors sitting right there in the room are being completely ignored. He uses sheer volume and established reputations to completely overwhelm Bhishma's argument. He is literally bringing receipts. He names Karna, a ruler with celestial armor who wrestled the invincible Jarasandha. He points directly at Drona and his son Ashwatthama, guys who, if they get enraged, have the literal power to annihilate the earth and everything on it. By highlighting these absolute monsters of war, the king of Chedi is trying to make Bhishma's worship of a cowherd look ridiculous, like he's totally disconnected from the reality of the room.
But he doesn't stop there. He just keeps going, aggressively rattling off this massive list of renowned royalty. Duryodhana, Jayadratha, Kripa, Rukman, the list goes on and on. It's basically a rhetorical filibuster. He's flooding the zone with the names of celebrated kings, fierce bowmen, rulers with endless wealth and power. And the strategy here is totally about isolation. By naming virtually every other powerful person in the assembly as more deserving of praise, he's actively trying to turn the entire room against Bhishma. He's trying to frame this elder statesman as just a foolish, ignorant old man who's abandoned traditional royal morality.
Which sets the stage beautifully for Phase 3. The foolish bird metaphor.
Now, things get intensely personal. The argument shifts away from a debate over merit and turns into a direct character assassination. The king of Chedi drops this story about the Bulinga bird, a creature living way out beyond the Himavat mountains. This bird constantly screeches, "Never do anything rash." But here's the kicker. It's so foolish that it actually picks pieces of meat directly from the teeth of a feeding lion. The king vividly accuses Bhishma of being exactly like this hypocritical bird. He tells Bhishma, look, just as that bird only survives at the pleasure of the lion, you only survive at the pleasure of the kings you're insulting right now. It is a razor-sharp, deeply humiliating metaphor. It's perfectly designed to strip Bhishma of his independence, his wisdom, and his dignity all at once.
And well, that brings us right to Phase 4, the boiling point.
Listen. If you tell a proud, ancient warrior that he only exists because you allow him to, you better brace yourself for a legendary response. Bhishma fires back right in the hearing of his challenger and says, "Truly am I alive at the pleasure of these rulers of earth, but I do regard these kings as not equal to even a straw." Talk about conversational judo. It's absolutely breathtaking. He takes the very premise of the king of Chedi's insult, that the kings hold his life in their hands, and just flips it entirely on its head. In one breath, Bhishma doesn't just insult the king of Chedi, he dismisses the entire royal assembly. The very lions who supposedly hold his fate, he calls them worthless, weightless straw.
Unsurprisingly, this is the match that lights the powder keg. The text vividly describes the kings erupting in extreme wrath, their hair literally standing erect in fury. No joke, they absolutely lose their minds at this disrespect. These massive warlords start screaming that the boastful old man doesn't deserve pardon. And notice the poetic irony in their rage here. They threaten to muster together and burn Bhishma alive in a fire made of grass and straw. The exact metaphor Bhishma just used to diminish them is now being weaponized as a gruesome death threat. At this point, the verbal sparring is officially over. We have crossed the threshold into the threat of sheer physical violence. Which brings us to the final act of this confrontation, Phase 5, the ultimate challenge.
So with weapons drawn and bloodlust hanging heavy in the room, let's just take a second to look at how rapidly we got here. Step 1 was a simple disagreement over praise. By Step 3, it was a proxy war of rival warriors. Step 4 made it deeply personal with that Bulinga bird insult. Step 5 was the ultimate dismissal, comparing kings to straw. And now at Step 6, we have a literal mob threatening to burn a man alive. In just a few minutes of conversation, we've escalated from basic parliamentary procedure to an absolute life-or-death standoff. It is a masterclass in narrative escalation.
Facing down this entire furious mob, Bhishma takes the floor for one final, definitive power move. He notes that words only answer words, and he absolutely refuses to be intimidated. He tells them, "Whether I be slain like an animal or burnt in a fire of grass and straw, thus do I distinctly place my foot on the heads of ye all." It's the ultimate alpha dominance display. Even staring down the threat of being burned alive, he figuratively, and maybe even literally, in his posture, places his foot on the heads of the greatest monarchs of the earth. He is asserting total, unbreakable dominance over the room, letting them know their rage means absolutely nothing to him.
And you know what? He doesn't just leave it at an insult. He issues an open invitation for their destruction. Bhishma points to Krishna, calling him Govinda and Madhava, the wielder of the discus and mace, and delivers this truly chilling challenge. Let him who wisheth for speedy death summon to battle Madhava, and falling enter into and mingle with the body of this god. He takes their fury and completely redirects it away from himself, pointing it straight toward the divine being they so foolishly underestimated. It's a brilliant tactical pivot. It forces the kings to either back down completely or step up and fight a literal god. When ego drives an argument this far past the point of no return, who is actually foolish enough to take the bait? That tension, right there, is exactly what makes this text such an enduring masterpiece of human conflict. So the next time you find yourself in a heated argument, maybe remember the straw, the bird, and just how fast things can hit the boiling point. Thanks for joining this explainer. We'll catch you next time.